was it. You're already on there. Oh,
I'm sorry.
Now you're on a different one. That's okay.
I didn't have us on the still. I'm sorry.
If you put it on 2, we'll be in the shot.
Should I go back?
Yeah, why not?
Oh. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's different every time.
It's
it shouldn't be. Hey, welcome everybody. It's Eugene and Dylan's Guitar Show. I'm Eugene Edwards over here. That's Dr. Dylan Caligiuri right over there. And if he wasn't, I wouldn't be able to do this.
Ho, ho.
See?
Ho,
Proof.
not AI.
That's
not AI.
That's right.
Probably.
So let's talk. So now approach tones or neighboring tones, they can be called either, and target tones. Let's get right into this. Okay, so in the beginning, we played the solo to On the Road Again by Willie Nelson. A beautiful, and he basically just plays the melody that he's been singing. But it has, in a couple of spots, a neighboring tone or an approach tone, and it's what makes his solos have a little flair. So the beginning here, I'm going to go to, is that me? That's me, right? No, that's not me. That's me.
There you go.
So we're starting here. It's, sorry. So this note here is the target note. It's the major third of his key. It's the note that he really wants to sing. But he plays 1 fret below that to approach it. Then he dips back into it. There's another approach tone. So here's, and then it goes on there. So that's a great example of using an approach tone in soloing. Now, here's why we would use them. Here's my argument, sir, if I may submit to the court.
Yeah.
Okay, if the analogy is that a solo or our guitar playing is like storytelling, okay, then I could use just scale tones, sure. Yeah. And the story would make sense. It would be tuneful. It'd be diatonic, and everything would be safe.
But would anybody want to read it, Eugene?
I don't know if it's that compelling. So what if I want to use, just to give my story some zhuzh, you all right there?
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
What if I want to use some slang or want to use a dirty word or, a very, very elevated word, very erudite, fancy word, right, to kind of get your attention and pull you back in? These would be approach tones or neighboring tones. These are essentially notes that aren't really scale notes, but they give us a little zhuzh, a little elan, a little flair, if you will.
Yeah.
Okay. And so what Willie Nelson does is he gives it this gypsy jazz kind of feeling, because it could have been. That's just playing straight up scale tones, right?
Yeah.
No zhuzh. But instead we get. Oh, sorry. Has a little swing, has some swagger. So this is what we want to do to give our playing as players. And if you're just starting out, this is a really great tip, a really nice way to easily, and we're going to show you how easily this is done, to give your playing a little style, a little flair. And you don't have to be scared about like leaving the scale or the chord shape. What say you, sir?
Yeah. Well, so a good example of this, just that's off the cuff.
Yep.
Let's say you're in the key of A.
Okay.
A, as in ain't you gonna play in the key of A?
Today's episode was brought to you by the key of A.
And if you know A pentatonic, you can start with your pinky on A and then build the scale off of there. So it's your pinky. Oops, sorry. Pinky on 6th string. So instead of just coming down the scale, you can add an approach tone to each one of the upper figures of the scale. Or, so the last one is reversed.
And those were just half step above each note as you were going down the scale.
Right, exactly. And building, continuing to build off that, you build lines that are even, that move up from a neighbor, down from a neighbor, neighboring tone being a tone that's nearby a scale tone. You can have what's called chromatic neighbors and diatonic neighbors. This
is interesting. So it was funny. We were talking about this before this episode, and there are people probably in
very briefly
in ivory towers somewhere.
Oh yes,
debating, is that an approach tone or is that a neighboring tone?
Indubitably,
is that a lower neighbor? Is that an upper?
But concordantly.
But that's just nomenclature.
Yeah,
I kind of don't care what they're called. We're just gonna point them out and use them, and we'll let them debate that stuff. By the time they're done, we've played our solo and we moved on to something else.
Yeah, and when you combine neighboring tones or approach tones with various techniques, you end up with a lot of variation in a scale. So if we have that same thing. So this is like basically an approach. It's just a continuation of that same concept. If we do the same thing where we move up the neck, we can use multiple tones with the approach.
I got one.
Uh-oh, watch out.
Watch
out.
Wait, which I'm 3.
You want to be there?
So
Yeah,
So
sure.
let's say I want to emulate like a pedal steel or kind of a lap steel thing, like I'm doing a Western swing thing.
Wild man.
I'm
Wild.
talking about. Let's say we're in the key of A. I'm gonna take my D shape A here, but I'm gonna make a 6th voicing out of that. So there. Got this nice A6 thing kind of going here, and then I'm gonna just that. The whole thing, half a fret down. If I want to give it a little that. So then, in that case, yes, all 3 notes.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
how I get away with these really cool pedals.
It's very, very pedal steelish or slack key-ish.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's
And so that's really a use of approach tones and all that sort of jazz, if you will.
Yeah.
And then so we hear them a lot in blues. Obviously, Dylan with what Dylan just did there, he took the major pentatonic of A, and he was working from, I guess the B natural note, 4th fret G. You were just doing that, right? But then if you started half a note above that first one, then you did the same thing for.
And then I went up to.
And so that's where a blues lick would come from if we were being, medical about it. But doesn't that have so much? It's just so much more. I don't know. It's so much more conversational than.
Yeah.
Which does sound fine. That's nice. I'd be happy with that phrase.
Yeah.
But this just gives it a little more. Oh, or you could always what if you did like a pre-bend, and so in that case we fretted them, but what if you?
Yeah, and if
That
you
sort
do
of
some
stuff.
pre-bending and some approaching by half step, and you're going to end up with quite the stew.
Well, that's what Eric L is saying. Got to show off the stuff a guitar can do with slides
Yeah.
and bends. So here's another example. Now, to get started, and just this is a way where you can just kind of start with this little bit of an exercise, if you will. It's a tip. And it's not from a particular song, but it's definitely a blues jazz phrase from over a century ago. Just so you can get used to seeing your hand doing it, basically. Seeing your own hand on the fretboard doing it makes a big difference for a lot of people. So if we're, sorry, that's you. Different cameras every time. So I've got my A major chord, right?
Mm-hmm.
E shape at the 5th fret. Great. Now I'm going to take the top 3 strings of this. So 6, 5, 5, right? And let's say my phrase I want to start with is just that. I just want to do that, right? But to give it and those are all scale tones and chord tones. That's fine. But let's give it a little more jazz. All I'm going to do is that very first note that's at fret 6, I'm going to slide it from fret 5 to 6. So now that phrase is just a little more in the Western vocabulary, if you will. And again, if you just so you can be oriented, if you will, just for orientation. This is just out of an E shape, and we're just taking the G string, we're just sliding up to that. And we present. Now, or it can, there's that sort of stuff where that last note, instead of just playing it here, we slide from 8th fret to 10th fret, and again, that's kind of approachy, but we're actually going from one scale to the next.
Approachy.
But it's approachy.
It's like Jim Coachy. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
It's Jim. Okay. Ozzy.
Oh, what?
Ozzy just joined us.
Oh, now I'm intimidated.
There's royalty here. Sit up straight. Jeez, what were you thinking? Rex, come on. Show your... Okay.
So this is great. Look what Ozzy says. This is great. Everybody look up this book. Jimmy Amati, in his book, he enumerated these concepts into what he called improvisational forms, plus and then the permutations, the variations of this thing, which you can just take one of these forms and then you could just like play so many variations of, or string a variety of them together, and you have lots of really compelling phrases. I'll tell you what, you'll run out of time. Your solo will be over and you'll still have more ideas left over. You have to save it for the next solo, which is a good problem to have. Thank you, Ozzy. That's a great... Everybody, I want you to like cut and paste that one later on and see what Mr. Amati, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, has to say about this stuff,
Well, so if you stick with a scale, let's say we're...
Oh, yeah. That's a good idea.
A minor. So if you play You play A minor for me.
Wait, I'll play A minor for you and get out of your way.
So if we work on the upper neighbor for every one of these, I'm sorry, lower neighbor, excuse me. So this is the regular A minor pentatonic scale. I'm going to pick a note below each one of the notes. So it's a very non-scientific way. And these notes, you know, some of them work better than others, right? So this one works really well. So that's the 9th. On this string, the 6th works really well. So we have this added to minor pentatonic, this added to minor pentatonic. This is the major 3rd, and you're on a minor chord, so it works if you just touch it.
Yeah, exactly.
But if you sit on it, now we got serious issues, right? The minor 7th, or excuse me, the major 7th spells melodic minor.
That one I noticed.
Which is going to sound like you're going to, somebody in the crowds might throw up, but other people are going to be very excited. The flat 5 is the one that you take home to that uncle that lives down the street that probably smokes pot, but you know, I think it's something he can get into.
You have that uncle, he kind of smells like your art teacher?
Yeah, that's it.
That one.
And then finally, you're back on the same note that's 2 octaves away off this string. So if you just, all this is a lower neighbor to every note in the minor pentatonic scale. So I had, and it's, a lot of the people we're listening to, it was no more scientific than that. They found the notes they liked, and they started to play around with them like colors on a palette.
And stuck with them.
And stuck around with them, and they got into their playing like a cockroach in the flour. I gotta work on that. I used to have the Bubba gut. No,
I have a pest
Chicken
control
in the-
service. I can refer you. I
Chicken in
actually
the
saved
bread pan
$25.
picking out dough.
Does that have approach tones?
Oh God!
Devil went down to Georgia? Could you? I put you on the spot here. I'm gonna go back to your. Oh, why do I keep doing this?
Oh. I'm sorry.
You can hear it dipping.
Yeah, you can hear right here.
That.
Sorry. So there's really just that major 7th, which is
out of the minor.
in D minor.
It was funny because Eric L notices the half step slide sounds like the Pink Panther theme. Well, that's a good ear, Eric, because it even starts with a power chord, an E power chord that slides half a step. That right there. So those are approach tones. Technically, those are lower neighbors. And then the melody, does that. Notice how the melody.
Yeah, it's approaching everyone. Eric, that's a solid.
That's a great
solid one,
example, man. Great ears, and this is a great example of active listening.
Active listening.
Active listening.
Yes.
That's right. You know, last night I hosted a night at Club TG again down
What
in
does TG
Atwater.
stand for?
No, it's
Trans.
guitar.
No,
No,
not that.
I don't know. I'll have to
Definitely
find
not.
out. I don't know the history of
that.
the building necessarily, but it was fun because one of the guests she came in and she did some songs that she wrote, and they're kind of country songs, and it was really fun to improv, like to do call and response with her vocal.
Yeah.
And I found myself kind of relying quite a bit on these approach tones. For instance, so like if we were in the key of, let's stick with the key of A. Why not? And then, so again, we have our A shape here. Now, one of the really nice sounding ones is right here at the 9th fret is my major 3rd, and here at the 12th fret is my perfect 5th in the key of A. So if I can just travel from right there, so chromatically, if you will. Now that's really the approach tone. That's
that's
D.
the
That's an E flat, D sharp. This is not in the key of A, but I'm going to use it to travel there. And then I play the root again, so, or you hear it, or going backwards. You can just over and over again, and just kind of just do twiddly diddly stuff, if you will.
It's a tweedle deedle. Yeah.
So even that, ending on it. Another approach tone. That's where those phrases come from, and they kind of sound fun and like dancing around. It kind of makes you do this. Remember when we used to dance and we would do this? We would just take an index finger.
Did that happen?
Yeah, I saw it in Marx Brothers movies. And then also when we won championships, we would do this too, which is really uncomfortable. It's physically not even. But I'd like to bring that
a lot of
back.
scapular.
I'd like to bring. I'd like to see. I just want like at the end of the World Cup, I want to see somebody hoisted on his teammate's shoulders or hers, and do one. If Caitlin Clark can do one of those, I think that. Then I'd be a fan.
So let's talk about how. This is the easiest possible way to understand this would be using bass notes. So if you have...
Oh, now you tell me.
A chord, yeah. So let's say we have a chord progression that moves from A to G. Major A.
May I play that for you, sir?
Sure. Just give 4 beats of this and then 4 beats of that.
Okay.
All right, so... if we play just the root notes of each one, we'll have what a bass player would do if they were overly disciplined. Too much order, not enough chaos. Right. So if we add an approach tone on beat 4, that's going to create... Here's another option approach tone.
Wow, that one... I don't even know which one of those is better. It's pretty good.
Here's the 5th on beat 3 with an approach tone. Woo! Here's 2 and a 5th on. Now we have a full-on one.
Yeah, I really want to join you on that half step.
We call that copycatting.
Sorry.
Disney Mickey Mousing. No, we don't call it that. No, but does this make sense to everybody? So let's take a slightly more complicated one. So let's try one that's a 2-5-1. Everybody know the progression? Eric's got something there. Let's see. Yeah, that's exactly.
Not enough creativity to do much more than root. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So without this kind of basic concept, and you've been hearing this your whole life, you just sometimes don't necessarily have words for it.
I think that's what Eric's finding out right now, which is pretty exciting.
It's not necessary to have words either, you know.
Yeah.
You know, codify. Is that the right? I feel like that could be the right word. Let me approach that word with teaching how to do this. So here we go. So here, why don't you put it on camera? So we'll just pick a camera. Pick a random one. Let's see what happens. There we go. Let's try that.
That happens to be the right one.
So
Go ahead.
2-5-1 in the key of C. So this is one of the most common progressions in music. It's going to be D minor 7, G7, and C. We'll make it major 7 to make it froggy. This is for the parents, kids. All right. So Eugene's going to play that for me. And if you hear the bass notes of each one of those chords, ding, ding, here's the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's 2 beats for the first 2 chords and then 4 for the last one. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to approach the first chord. We'll try that again. Approach D. Approach G, approach C. Approach D, approach G, approach C. And I can add more here, but we'll try above on G. One more time, keep going. That was above D, above G, behind C. Here's behind D, above G, above C. So you hear, like, each one of these approach tones has a different level of tension in it.
Yeah.
So the approach from above is like, you better. You want to stay. Do you want to go to jail now?
Yeah.
Yeah. Don't. Fine.
No time to call a lawyer. Just you better land the root.
You better land on the root, pal.
Or souls will be lost.
Yeah. The one behind, which would be the major 7th of the approach or the flat 5 of the chord you're leaving, is still quite quite necessary to resolve. It's the leading tone is what you resolve in a seventh chord if you have a SATB or soprano, alto, tenor, bass format.
SATB.
SATB. Does it sound like a test you take to get in the military?
I think I passed that pretty well in high school.
You did not.
I did not do well on that.
read the results and you did not pass it.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Well,
sorry was one of the misspellings.
Oh,
that
because I pronounced it that way.
You did ask Surrey to help you at one point, and that also is not.
When you said we were talking about the lower neighbor, I tend to think that's what Canada now calls us.
That's still good the second time.
Well, it's good enough for Eric. Now, Eric has a question. If you use a scale degree approach, is it a little less tension then? So I think, meaning like if you play the perfect fourth going to the perfect third, which is a half step.
Well, the nearest scale degree approach would be a second. And that's going to be less tension, but also it's going to sort of sound meandery. And I'll tell you why. Because one of the reasons that sevenths and thirds are so impactful in a chord is because they demand to be addressed. And the root and the fifth really don't demand to be addressed to the same extent.
So the root and the fifth together, in particular,
Yeah.
create a power chord.
And
there's a reason
they can move anywhere.
It's rock solid. It doesn't need to move anywhere.
Right.
It's not an
If we toss a
unresolved
third on
tension.
If we toss a seventh on there, it starts to feel like you're doing a lot more movement than you were initially. But so that same progression would sound like this with the nearest diatonic tone, which is a second. So it would be, here's the second away from G, second away from C, second away from D. So it has sort of like a Motown-y quality to it, or a bubblegummy quality. And oftentimes you'll hear bass players combine these.
Oh, really? Okay, but do you understand how he's playing it really safe right there? He's playing a whole step above the bass note before he resolved to the bass note.
Yeah.
And it works. It's diatonic, meaning he's
Sounds legal.
playing. Yeah, it sounds totally, it's copacetic. It's, you know what it is?
Nobody's getting hurt.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah, it'll work.
It's fine. But it's not cool.
Well, the biggest part of this, and Ozzy could speak to this a lot. In fact, it'd be great to have Ozzy on here.
I think can he come here now?
Yeah. Well, Ozzy,
what
he's
are you
got a lot of
doing?
hair, and we have to make sure it fits on camera. But like, one of the things is, so if you have tension in the line that's being sung over your chords, it's sort of this Occam's razor thing. You probably don't want tension in your other instruments. You might. It depends on how many people you want to be at the gig.
Yeah.
And then, if you want 3 or 4, toss a lot more chords in there and then put tension on everything. Put tension.
I will say at our club gig last night, we have there's just we have a lot of girls come into the show.
Sure.
And they love to dance, and we probably not a coincidence, but we don't play any Rush.
Yeah, well, you know
what I mean?
Unless you put Rush 4 on the floor, which none of those are in 4, so it's going to be really tricky.
But I'm sorry, I digress. Go back to what you're saying.
So, so a combination of the two would probably be the ideal, Eric, which is something like, so if I approach D by half step, approach G by whole step, approach C by half step, now to A7.
Go.
That was 2 approach tones to D. That was only diatonic approach tones. So when you start building a bass line, so if our song does this, if it's a bass line might be.
Oh, this is my chance.
That's when they did it.
See,
Now it actually makes sense.
I'm doing like the Charleston over
Unbelievable.
here. So
you were a flapper
it just
girl.
happened. Well, yeah. That was my
And a
wrestling.
former-
That was my wrestling.
Yeah,
name
that
back
was
in
your
the 80s.
Mexican wrestling name. It's
It was.
Flapper.
Flapper girl.
Flapper guy.
Yeah, that's right. No, by the way, Eric brings up a great point there in his most recent comment. How do we spell zhuzh?
You know, what's the sandwich you order?
Your,
the sandwich you order that comes with juice? French dip? Is that it?
Au jus.
Au jus. I think it's something like that.
Gesundheit. No, but we should go to Philippe's. Now I'm hungry. I'm really hungry.
Is it something like that, though, the zhuzh?
No, it's au jus. But maybe, you know what? Maybe that's where we get the phrase. I feel like somebody in my life sent an article to me I think it was the New York Times had an article about where that word comes from, and
The juge?
just juge.
It sounds
like,
French.
to mean
Something French.
now. It is 10 to 2 in the morning here, and need some distortion to stay awake. Okay, Rory. I'm gonna do like a Ramones power
Terrified.
chord thing, and then you play a lead over it with approach tones. Ready?
Oh. Just like the record.
That was for you, Rory.
Just like the record, literally.
Rory, thank you so much for staying awake there 10 to 2 in the morning.
You're in Ireland, right, Rory?
I guess Flight of the Bumblebee is like one of the more chromatic
Yeah, now we're getting into
melodies.
So Flight of the Bumblebee is okay, so if it's
Oh, sorry.
I have to sit up straight. And this is my chiropractor would love this camera actually.
Yeah.
It's hard to argue that those are approach tones because
I
there's
just think about
it's okay, so we're only approaching and we never arrive. Correct.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, there you
But
go.
if you think about a bee or a hummingbird or a
jackrabbit.
jack, there's not a lot of arrival. There's a lot of methamphetamine type of vibes going on. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that makes it. Well,
Yeah.
listen, we only have like a couple minutes, and we're going to switch over to our workshop for the developing guitarists. And I think we're going into sevenths. We were starting about major sevenths
Yeah,
last
we did
week.
the family of chords, and then we did so we do warm up every time, and we talk about
have
how
various
we warm up
exercises.
for our lives. The guitar part of it, obviously, we don't warm up our emotionality.
I do
why there's a lot of
deep
crying.
breathing. 4 seconds in, 4 seconds out. Helps me out a
He
lot.
does it once a year on New Year's.
Leap years.
Okay. So, but and then outside of that, we talk about what does a daily practice look like? How do you build a ritual that will help you serve your needs? Because this thing you have to start asking yourself, why are you doing this? And if it's not for you, then who the hell is it for?
What are we doing here?
Yeah, it's got to be for you. So, and it's super enjoyable when it's for you, and it takes a long time to kind of accept that and to decide you're worth, being vulnerable and going out on a limb for. But it really can happen with guitar. It's
Worth
pretty cool.
the time. Yeah. So it's not too late to join tonight, or you can join us next week. As long as you join us, it's a lot of fun. Easy to sign up. The link is in the show description. I think I used the right one. I don't know. I screw up the link thing
There's a
every
lot
time.
of problems with letters and numbers,
I'm not
websites.
not a strong reader guy.
It's not strong.
It's just
Not a strong.
which is why
reader.
I did not do well in the SATB. That's why. All right, so we're gonna go out. We're gonna go out
that's funny.
with On the Road again, and this goes to Willie, who just
On
turned
the Road
90.
still
he
on
just
the road
turned
again.
91 the other day. So this is for you, Willie, with some little
Willie.
approach tones, one of our favorite guitar solos of all time. And we'll see you next week, and we'll have go back to a song deep dive sort of thing. I promise. Ready? 1, 2, 1, 2. Oh, where is that? Oh, right here. There we are. Ah. Watch that bass line. Yeah. That sort of thing. Bye, everybody.